From the very beginning, our focus has been on protecting the health and safety of all of our citizens, here and abroad. Members of the Senate will recall that when our borders were closed, there was a mad rush to find over 5,000 Jamaicans who would have returned home in the last couple of days before that closure. That experience forced the government to put in place procedures and a system that will allow us to manage in a controlled way the return of our citizens, as well as the entry of non-nationals. The measures allow the Ministry of Health and Wellness to monitor for the period of 14 days and longer if necessary, all returning residents. The 14-day period is consistent with the internal and international standards and best practices as it relates to the COVID incubation period. To manage this process, we launched a website and app dubbed Jam COVID, hosted by the Office of the Prime Minister, which facilitates an application process which brings together critical information for PICA and the Ministry of Health that allow a risk assessment to be done before travel is approved. It also allows the tracking of persons during their quarantine period, regardless of where they are under quarantine. This system has now been introduced through visitjamaica.com as well, which allows non-residents to apply there. The process and the questions for residents and non-residents is the same, and although there are two separate portals, the information is housed and the risk assessment done in the same place. Though they have been acknowledged in another place by the PM, I wish to acknowledge the Amber Group who have donated to the people of Jamaica their time and skills to build this system, free of cost. It is also important that I acknowledge the team at ITEL BPO who have provided free of cost to the people of Jamaica so far, the call center support that guides people through the process. As of today, we have managed 19,312 applications from residents through the Jam COVID portal, and just over 2,700 non-residents through the Visit Jamaica portal. As at the close of business yesterday, 6,898 persons had returned to Jamaica and been landed since the start of the controlled re-entry program. We have 13,846 persons approved for travel in the Jam COVID system and 976 persons who have registered but not yet completed the application process. Important to note, there have been foreign nationals who we've actually rejected for travel based on the risk assessment by the Ministry of Health. The assessment for Jamaicans determines the appropriate quarantine arrangements as opposed to whether they can travel. Someone seeking entry goes to the portal. Residents go to Jam COVID and non-residents, as I mentioned, goes to the Visit Jamaica website. They fill out their application with ask questions, which would be asked on the C5 form when entering Jamaica normally, and ask questions related to your exposure and current health condition as required by the Ministry of Health. Questions related to suitability for home quarantine are also asked. When persons have completed the process, their applications are reviewed by PICA and the Ministry of Health for approval. When approved, they are issued a certificate of approval digitally. This certificate is mandatory for persons to check in on flights coming to Jamaica. The process at our ports of entry, CR Air, is the same for all persons entering Jamaica, resident or non-resident, except for persons coming from countries which have been designated as a part of the travel bubble. The countries in this bubble are countries that the Ministry of Health and Wellness have assessed to cause very little risk, as they have little to no spread and generally very low number of cases in their countries. You land or dock at the port, persons disembark and are greeted first by a team from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which conducts the first health screening. At this screening, they take their temperatures and confirm the person's name and information. You then proceed to the second and more in-depth health screening before you enter the immigration hall or as a section of the immigration hall, depending on which port you look at. And you go into your more in-depth health screening, which confirms the information entered on your travel application and allows health professionals to complete risk assessment. Persons from countries outside of the travel bubble proceed to where they're sampled for testing. It is at this step where persons are registered either on their phone or with bands are registered on the system to be tracked, and the information for their addresses is input. That team has been managed collaboratively by the JDF and JCF. We have recruited 50 youngsters who are tech-savvy through the whole program to assist with this process under the supervision of the JCF and JDF, and they will earn a stipend and be beneficiaries of training modules, especially related to customer service. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will assist these youngsters every day with the provision of PPE and ensure they are wearing it correctly and so as to limit risk. So colleagues, even in crisis, there are opportunities and we must embrace them within the new normal. Persons are asked to arrange their own transportation unless they have been listed for government quarantine. The monitoring is done at a command center set up at the Commissioner of Police's office. This is where, if there are breaches, the appropriate public health officials and police station is notified. So there is a countdown in the system, colleagues. We're at the end of 14 days unless there is a request from the Ministry of Health to extend the order because of something that would have happened. You automatically come out of the system and we cease to track that person.